This week we got Wolverine #1, Saladin Ahmed, Martin Coccolo on art. I think this is something that a lot of people weren't looking forward to. Saladin Ahmed seemed like a very odd choice for Wolverine, and I'm going to say it right here, Doc. I think this is the best debut of any of the X-Men from the Ashes comic books. It's not completely perfect. It does have its flaws, but it is exciting. It's violent. And it kind of feels like Wolverine to me.
It wasn't a bad comic. There was good action. There was good storytelling. The plot kind of meandered along. It seemed kind of random sometimes in how that happened. But Wolverine was right up there with Uncanny X-Men as the least bad X-Men book from this entire lineup. And it might be slightly superior because I didn't have any of the goofy Gail Simone-isms like that Make-A-Wish kid.
I'm not going to give it a recommend yet. I might by the end of the video. I'm that close. I'm on the precipice of saying, yes, I think you should go out there and buy this and read it, because I do think there are a couple of things holding it back that bothered me. Hopefully Doc will be able to talk me out of that. The one big thing that I think you have to get your head around coming into Wolverine #1 is, while yes, Wolverine is an Uncanny X-Men and he's a part of the team, hanging out with Rogue and Gambit and Nightcrawler and Jubilee in Louisiana at the exact same time, Wolverine's also in Alaska, going back to the Wolf Pack, and he's not really civilized anymore. So it is a little bit strange, but as long as you can get your head around that and say, fuck it, I just want to see a good Wolverine story, I think you can really enjoy some parts of this.
Let's just say the continuity of the From the Ashes era is already a gigantic clusterfuck. Wolverine, he first appears in Jed McKay X-Men, and then he tells Cyclops to go fuck off because he's not going to join his X-team up in Alaska. So this obviously happens after that, and he decides he's just going to go out on his lonesome. But I think this also happens before he's hanging out with the X-Men in New Orleans.
Uncanny Are you sure X-Men about that? One? Because there's conversations between Cyclops and Rogue that are literally happening in issue #2 and issue #1, where you're getting both sides of the conversation. What kind of time gap did we get from X-Men 1 to X-Men 2? I'm assuming it's a few days, not a few months.
Yeah, but I think it is a few months.
Well, they should have told us that, don't you think?
Absolutely. Wolverine should not have appeared with 3 different kind of status quos in 3 different fucking launch titles so far.
If you can get your head around that, there is some enjoyment to have here. Let's get into the comic book, starting out with the art from Martin Coccolo. And I think he does a really good job. Obviously, he's not my favorite Wolverine artist. I don't think he's even up there with Adam Kubert, who I think did the last launch, or even Victor Bogdanovich. But he's got a good, solid Wolverine. He looks much cooler with the costume on than with the costume off, although probably half the book he doesn't have the costume on. But it's a solid looking book. When there's violence, it looks very violent. You know, it's a good looking comic book.
It still has that very uninked look to it that I am not a huge fan of. The coloring still looks muddy as shit. They try to go with too much blending of coloring instead of having more bold, contrasting lines. And that's a bit of a problem, but I don't really put that on the artist so much as I do the Marvel house coloring style these days. It was inked, but it was probably digitally inked. There's no line weight to it. There's no depth to it, and a lot of it ends up looking a little flat. That being said, I didn't mind it. The storytelling on the art was good. It was pretty easy to follow along where everything was going. And, you know, he drew Cyber looking quite menacing. I hated his rendition of Nightcrawler, though.
You're not the only one that did not appreciate that Nightcrawler, but for the most part, the art certainly does its job, and more than that. Now, as far as what's going on here, we do have Wolverine showing up. He's part of the Wolf Pack, buck naked. He's got knives. People are calling the local officials saying, hey, there's a naked man running around with wolves and knives. They send out a little party to go hunt him down, maybe. And they think for some reason that maybe Cyber is him, even though he's fully clothed. He's got metal arms and a big-ass gun. And it does not go well for these park rangers or whatever it is. Maybe it's a posse that they set up to hunt down this mysterious figure that's running around with wolves out there. It is a little weird because he's gone so feral, believing that it happens in between X-Men #1 and Uncanny X-Men #1. Like, how did he go so wild? Why did he give up on civilization, forget how to be a human so quick.
Wolverine has had his moments of that, but it's normally something where he's been fucking off the reservation for months at a time. This time it apparently happens in a couple of weeks, maybe. And he's so completely gone that he doesn't even recognize Nightcrawler's scent or his voice or his look. How many fuzzy blue elves does Wolverine know?
Not very many, but we certainly do get Nightcrawler. And I'm with you. The look on Nightcrawler, especially the knitted cap matching his sweater, is not something I've particularly enjoyed. And I love Nightcrawler. This is my favorite X-Men character. You know, in one respect, I'm like, hey, you know, throw Nightcrawler in there. It's good. You know, more Nightcrawler, the better. But in many ways, he was an unwanted guest in this comic book. Like, what the fuck is he even doing there? And I guess he's just there to try and talk Wolverine back from being so feral and becoming civilized and joining the X-Men again, even though there are no X-Men, according to the X-Men leaders.
You know, I had a friend in high school, because it would have been the late 90s, early 2000s. That's when metrosexual was a thing. There was a subgroup of men that had to always match. And that's where it looked like they were going with the look on Nightcrawler for this. I'm surprised he didn't talk about the fact that his shoes matched his belt. It's just a bad rendition of him.
And he shows up and he's looking for Wolverine. Wolverine almost kills him because he didn't even recognize him because he's so far gone. There's a lot of weird coincidences in the book. To get through the plot, you have to accept that a lot of just weird stuff, like you can just find Wolverine walking around in the wilderness of Alaska as if it's the size of Rhode Island.
You have a wolf pack and a naked guy, a military assassin. I mean, at least him tracking Wolverine. All right, I can kind of see that. And then fucking Nightcrawler just like wanders through like he's going for a Sunday stroll and just happens to happen upon all of it.
Like I said, you just got to deal with some random circumstances showing up to kind of move the plot through. But once you get through that kind of stuff, it gets pretty good. Wolverine and Nightcrawler are there. All of a sudden, Wolverine realizes something bad has happened. They heard a scream. They show up on this campsite, and Cyber has been there to draw Wolverine out. He just beats one of these hunters or campers to death with his bare hands. And it's pretty ridiculous. This is something that's being thrown into basically every single X-Men comic, the amount of vitriol being spewed at mutants. You've got a dude that's literally been beaten to death by a man with robot arms. You have a man show up in the Wolverine costume and spandex, and a guy that's blue. That other guy wants to kill you, yet you're going to tell the guy that can actually protect you and that has, you know, adamantium claws to go fuck himself because he's a muty bastard. I understand that it's baked into the concept of X-Men, and I think that's fine. But at some point, your racist instincts aren't so strong that it's going to supersede your instinct for survival and realizing there's a guy there that can save you right now from the man that literally beat your best friend to death with his bare hands.
He's making an effort to protect you and to stop the guy that's beating people to death. Even the most ardent racist is going to be like, fuck mutants, but maybe not that guy. At least today. You could be a fucking Klan member, and if like a black dude shows up to save your ass when you're getting the crap beat out of you, you're not racist, at least for that day. At least until that interaction is gone and you're back.
They made a whole movie called Crash about it.
Yes, exactly. Regardless of our prejudices, when it definitely suits your immediate survival, that racism goes right out the window. At least until it's over.
So this does work. It does obviously draw Wolverine out. He goes there to save the day. They're being mean to him. Cyber takes his shot, decides he's going to actually shoot Nightcrawler, not Wolverine, you know, because he does have adamantium skeleton. What's that going to do? Wolverine tackles Nightcrawler to get him out of the way of the bullet. It grazes his temple, so he's bleeding a little bit. Wolverine takes him to safety, applies, not a tourniquet because you can't do a tourniquet on a head, but he applies a field dressing, leaves him there, and is absolutely gone off the reservation about how he feels with Cyber. And you get just an awesomely violent, very dynamic, super badass fight scene for several pages. And some really nasty stuff happens there, and I was absolutely loving it. I was here for this.
Typically, it takes a lot for Wolverine to lose control. That's like something that he like prides himself on, that he's able to better hold back that berserker rage. And I mean, this is a little bit kind of a throwback to that. It's not that impactful for me. for him to lose it when he was already off the reservation when you started this issue. I'm just saying the impact isn't as effective as it could have been.
Listen, he could have went to a fucking hospital and visited a Make-A-Wish kid, or he could fight Cyber to the fucking death. I'll take the battle.
Look, it was a well-presented battle. I liked seeing him kind of lose his shit. There was at least an earlier comment about the fact that Wolverine had taken his one eye previously, and they go into this, and he's like, I'm taking the fucking other one this time.
There is a little problem with this battle. Yes, he takes his eye. He even tries to gut him, which was a pretty good moment. He's like, your insides ain't covered in adamantium, but he was kind of going at him. And he had him dead to rights. You know, he's killed his wolf pack. He took a headshot at Nightcrawler, was ineffective. He's decided he's going to kill Cyber, which is something Wolverine doesn't do often, but when he does it, he is the best at what he does. And all of a sudden, Cyber's like, man, your friend's going to bleed out. I don't know what to tell you, man. And he's like, damn, I should go back to Nightcrawler instead of finishing the job. He literally had him dead to rights. He could have sliced him right through the heart right then.
Is that extra 5 seconds that it would take to finish the job on Cyber? Is that going to be the difference between Nightcrawler living and dying, especially when you have to run, I don't know, halfway across the forest again?
It was just a grazing shot. It's not like he shot him through the temple.
The bullet wasn't in his brain. Honestly, he's unlikely to even bleed out. There's not a lot of blood flow over the scalp. You bleed a little bit like a stuffed pig, but it's mostly just kind of goes down your face. Pro wrestlers were great at this for their entire career. It was called blading.
But they needed a reason for the battle to stop and for him to not go that extra distance. And there's something that's happening, and this is probably even beyond the characterization and the look of Nightcrawler especially, which I didn't particularly appreciate in the comic book. I felt that was unwanted. As this is going on, there's like a sentient blob of gold in a cave, and the sound of adamantium on adamantium crashing and clanging as they're battling like wakes it up. It's been like dormant for, I don't know, 1,000 years, something, probably before time ever existed. And you see Cyber, who's been destroyed. He can't even see at this point. He's on death's door, walks into this cave, and the gold sentient blob overtakes him. And now this is going to be the new big foe for Wolverine. But this version of Cyber doesn't hate Wolverine. This version of Cyber is like jealous of adamantium, or calls it the false metal, and hates adamantium. And that's the big conflict, is the gold sentient blob on Cyber wants to destroy adamantium.
Now we just have gold Cyber? Is it going to be, this is the real nature of adamantium, and this is going to be a whole story that's basically...
I don't want to see a story about metals that don't like each other.
I know, that's exactly it. But that is absolutely right in the wheelhouse of Saladin Ahmed. It's like, how many times have we seen them explore the nature and origin of vibranium in Black Panther? Now they're going to do the same shit with adamantium. Like, I couldn't get it whether or not it hated adamantium. I know
it calls it the false metal multiple times.
I'm wondering whether or not, like, adamantium isn't actually adamantium. Adamantium that's on Wolverine and Cyber is actually extracted from this gold goo, and it's going to be fucking waste of time.
This is the perspective of the gold sentient metal. It will not rest again until all adamantium has been purged from the earth. I thought it started out well, but that was just such a downer of an ending for me.
I don't want to see a story about the nature of adamantium that's entirely focused on fucking metal. The fact that Wolverine's bones are coated by adamantium and that it's a rare precious metal. I mean, do I need an explanation about why gold is rare and precious? No. While I did enjoy this issue, and I don't know if I can recommend it at all.
I'm right on the edge, man. There's stuff to really like about it. That fight is great. You know, it's violent. There's enough gore there for a Wolverine. Don't think about the canon of it too much. But as far as the story itself, you know, there are a couple of things about it that kind of bring it down. The Nightcrawler stuff brings it down. The final big reveal brings it down. But I'm right on the precipice. So, you know, it's a 3.5 out of 5. It's a 7 out of 10. It's just, I think a lot of people will probably like it, but there's just elements that I just can't get over, that they just weren't very good. It was bad creative to throw them into here for Saladin Ahmed.
As a single issue, it's actually pretty good. If it was a one-shot, except for it's not a one-shot. It's not even a standalone issue because it's obviously part one of X. Where they're going with the rest of issues 2 through whatever, I have zero interest in.
Well, you're definitely getting Lady Deathstrike. We're getting the Wendigo. We saw Lady Deathstrike in the QR code. Yeah. Wendigo's mentioned in the next, like continuing on the next issue. So we're going to get some interesting, classic classic Wolverine elements in the story.
And that's fine, but the nature of the story itself, it's bringing some of the Canadian stuff, but mostly the adamantium related foes to him. I mean, it might as well be the fucking adamantium Wolverine, the adamantium war.
Tim and I said that we were probably moving towards that event, Adamantium Wars.
I know. I'm not joking. I believe that's where it's going. Now, the idea itself is laughable because it's so fucking retarded, but they're going to do it. I guarantee it. Unless they drop this whole adamantium and gold blob idea and whatever nonsense, wherever they're going with that nonsense, really quickly, I'm going to lose interest in this book so fast in issue 2.
But they do have your interest at that point, which I guess is a good start and better than most of the From the Ashes books. I did enjoy this one. Like I said, I'm right on the precipice of a recommend, but there are some elements I just can't get behind. But that does it, folks. My and Doc's review of Wolverine #1, Saladin Ahmed, Martin Coccolo, far better than we ever could have imagined. If you would like the full review, because we went about 35 minutes on this bad boy. I wasn't expecting that. You do need to go over to Think Critical Patreon. The Doc is Right tier, Doc Unfiltered. You get that as well as our conversation about these new X-Men titles. There's a link in the video description. Hope to see you there.